Nigeria decide 2023 politics of bitterness, intimidation, hate speeches as hallmark of 2023 polls. Wow, this is Inec chairman talking here that this campaign for 2023 election has been dominated by bitterness, intimidation, across board hate speeches, and it's so bad to have such as hallmark for the election come 2023. We have seen all the batters and all the stones and all the things that have been thrown across from Labour Party, from APC to Labour Party, from APC to PDP, PDP back to APC, PDP and APC straight to Labour Party, and keep going back and forth. And the thing is very, very bad, and it's translating to violence, and that is not acceptable. Let's hear what the Inec chairman has to say more about this. Since the build-up of activities to 2023 general election, politicians have not left anyone in doubt as to the direction of the campaign. Interesting and captivating as some of the events surrounding the campaign appear, there have also been lots of twists and turns trailing it. The forthcoming election is trailed by campaigns of calumny, mudslinging, and character assassination. Politicians, particularly the state governors, apprehensive of their parties possibly being defeated by their opponent, have been busy laying all kinds of landmines on the way to intimidate, suppress, oppress, and frustrate them. Analysts argue that the country's political landscape since the Independent National Electoral Commission blew the ways to setting in motion the electionary campaign, it has been politics of rancor, bitterness, and intimidation. Those who control the levers of political authority, particularly the state governors, more often than not have frustrated efforts by their opponents to canvass for votes from the electorate in their domain, either by denying them access to public facilities for campaign, or destroying their campaign posters using their paid agents, or even attacking and disrupting the opponent's political rallies. Much as concerned Nigerians at home and in the diaspora, including the civil society groups, opposition political parties, and non-governmental organizations, among other interested bodies, have condemned the rising acts of intimidation of political opponents by those who control political power. The trend has continued unabated. The development has attracted the attention of President Muhammadu Buhari, who recently read a riot act to politicians in that regard. Disturbed by the growing wave of election-related violence across the country, the president had last month reminded politicians about the consequences of their actions, warning them to rein their thugs or risk a commensurate backlash from the law enforcement agent. Perhaps the president's intervention, according to analysts, might not be unconnected with the electoral body's earlier alarm that the spate of violence in the country, particularly as it affects the electioneering campaign ahead of next year's general election, was unbecoming, having tracked 50 incidents of campaign violence in 21 states since the campaign kicked off. That's huge. The Inec chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, had at an emergency meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security recently held in Abuja, condemned the simultaneous attacks on Inec offices in Abeokuta, South Local Government Area in Ogun State, and Ede South Local Government Area in Osun State. Regarding the spate of physical attack during the ongoing political campaigns and rallies, the Commission has so far tracked 50 incidents across 21 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. These unhappy occurrences are coming just a little over 1 month into the election campaign, which is scheduled to last for about 5 months, September 28, 2022 to February 23, 2023. For presidential and National Assembly elections, and from October 12, 2022 to March 11, 2023 for the governorship and state houses of assembly elections. The Commission is worried that if no urgent and decisive steps are taken, the attacks will intensify as we approach the election date. As we all know, a peaceful campaign heralds a peaceful election. We need to take decisive steps to stem the ugly trend, the Inec boss noted. Regrettably, the trend has continued despite the president's warning until last week's brutal assassination of the Labour Party women leader in Kaduna State, Mrs. Victoria Chintex. Many saw her murder as politically motivated, solely conceived, orchestrated, and executed to silence the Labour Party or reduce its growing influence in Kaduna State, as well as to threaten other persons that may try to mobilize support for the party. Figuratively speaking, it was the last straw that broke the camel's back as the National Security Advisor, General Mohammed Monguno retired, came out smoking in anger. He warned the governors for the umpteenth time to call their thugs to order, even as he reminded them that henceforth the ego eyes of the security agents would be on them and their thugs. He promised them that their activities would not escape the security searchlight that is already beamed across the country, except they desist from further intimidating political opponents using their thugs and play by the rules. I want to send a very clear warning, a categorical and unequivocal warning to those people who have gangsters working for them, regardless of whichever party, including the party of the president, that as long as you decide to scuttle the electoral process, the law enforcement agent will equally be uninhibited in reacting to whatever action you have taken. You will be visited with appropriate and commensurate response, and I am saying this with all sincerity. Can you imagine? Let them go and find out the killer of Victoria Chintex now. That death should not go under the cooler. So I want to warn those who think that they have a history of organizing and controlling crooks, that have an inclination for expressing inordinate behavior, to reassess and reevaluate their inclination or contemplation. Call your people and advise them that as long as they do not behave in a manner that suggests compliance with the electoral law, you will be held accountable. Already, the security and intelligence agencies are tracking these people. Call your thugs and advise them to lay down whatever plans they have, because whoever wins in any state, that party has won. This is the intention of the president of the country. There can be no pretense or excuse whatsoever, Monguno stated. Some sections of the country believe that the public outcry and condemnation that followed Chintex's murder was what informed the federal government's stern warning through the NSA. They reasoned that it was the same incident that forced even the Inspector General of Police to also issue a strong warning, particularly to the state governors, to either play by the rules or have the security agents to contend with. All right, the IGP Usman Baba, who decried the rising cases of political attacks on opposition parties across the country, pointedly accused some unnamed governors of sponsoring thugs to incite violence. The police boss listed such disturbing development to include the recent attack on the campaign convoy of the People Democratic Party Presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, last week, attacks on Labour Party activities in Enugu, Ebonyi, Lagos, and other states, as well as the alleged threat by the Kogi State Governor Yaya Bello to physically attack or key members of the opposition party who stand in his way in the state. Can you imagine? Vowing to take decisive action against hate speech, incitement to violence, mobilization of thugs, and other violations, the IGP also promised that there will be prompt arrest, investigation, and prosecution of offenders in line with the provisions of sections 92 and 93 of the Electoral Act 2022 as amended. He said political violence manifests in three forms. First is violence that targeted at the personnel and assets of the Independent National Electoral Commission, as recently witnessed in Ogun and Osun states. The second form of political violence manifests in the form of inter-party intolerance and violence, which often become particularly pronounced during campaigns, elections, and post-election phases. It is on record that Not less than 52 cases of such politically motivated intra and inter-party violence have been recorded across 22 states since the official commencement of campaigns for the 2023 general election on September 28, 2022. The last form of political violence relates to the conduct of some state governors who manifest traits of political intolerance, which often inflame political tension. In this regard, we have been receiving reports of some state governors who encourage political thugs and sub-national security outfits under their control to disrupt seamless and statutorily guaranteed campaign activities of parties or candidates with whom they hold opposition political views. In so doing, they deploy their powers and influences to either prevent the mounting of campaign billboards or pull them down, while also denying political opponents of spaces to undertake their campaign or peaceful political congregations in contravention of the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022 as amended. He warned those intimidating political opponents of the consequences as their activities would be fully brought under the radar of security agents. He said, if political thugs are armed with any sort of weapon and inspired by any political actor to advance an illegal act, including attacking innocent citizens for political purposes or attacking Inec assets and personnel or any other critical infrastructure in the country, such persons and those orchestrating them stand the risk of being brought to justice for the specific crime associated with their conduct, regardless of their political affiliation, status, or ambition. Beyond its impact on the political process, political violence also has a major consequence on our national security. Consequently, the Nigerian Police Force and all other national security agencies, in fulfillment of their statutory obligations to the nation, remain duty-bound to initiate enforcement actions that will restore order within the political and national security systems. Henceforth, we shall put machinery in motion that will, in the most proactive manner, identify, isolate, apprehend, and bring any political actor and the foot soldiers they might be motivating to engage in violence at the political rallies or any other political engagement to deserved justice. Wow. It is also on record that Mr. President had at various global and national platforms openly affirmed his commitment to deepening the country's democratic journey by encouraging the virtues of a peaceful electoral process in which the interests and wishes of the electorate take preeminence. But in spite of the warning from the president, NSA, and the IGP, politicians are still not ready to play by the rule. They would still not allow a level playing ground for all the contestants. Just yesterday, December 3rd, the Labour Party campaign rally in Lakwe area of Lekki, Lagos State, was attacked by thugs allegedly to have been sponsored by the APC. And according to reports, several people were injured in the attack. According to the Labour Party organizing secretary in Ibejuleki, Oluwadare Bamidele, who sustained injury from the attack, the attackers were lying in wait inside a bus at a corner around the Lakwe junction and emerged to ferociously attack them as soon as they got to the junction. However, lending his voice to the development, the president of the Middle Belt Forum, Dr. Bogu Bitrus, condemned the attacks, noting that campaigns should be based on issues rather than on individuals. He charged the security agents to be neutral in their discharge of their constitutional responsibility, especially as it affects the 2023 elections. The security agents, without taking side, should act as true enforcers of law so that we can have peaceful and violence-free election next year, he added. He condemned the killing of the Labour Party women leader in Kaduna, describing it as an evil development that must not be allowed to sleep. It is quite unfortunate and sad to hear that a woman supporting a political party that is gaining traction like the Labour Party has been shot in cold blood. That is an unfortunate development and should not be allowed. The perpetrators should be fished out and brought to book. This should not happen anywhere. The same thing should apply to those who viciously attack the campaign trail of the People Democratic Party presidential candidate in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. All these acts are against our political development, and it is up to the political leader to ensure that their subjects do not take law into their hands. No governor should stop anybody from exercising his or her political right. Every eligible adult in this country has the right to vote for whoever he or she chooses, and no person should impede on that right. Our political system should be free so that we have a free and fair election in 2023. Nothing short of that is acceptable in Nigeria today, he submitted. On the genuineness of the marching orders from the NSA, IGP, and even the president, he said he could not specifically say whether they were genuine or not, but insisted that there should be a neutrality with regard to the security agents. He said, any person or group of persons, including the insurgents that attempt to disrupt the elections, destabilize a community, or frustrate the opponents through violence should be dealt with. All right. Dr. Bitrus called on President Buhari to borrow a leaf from what the former President Goodluck Jonathan did in the build-up to the 2015 general election, particularly as it affects violence and security generally. He said, in fact, what Jonathan did in 2014 should be replicated now. The then service chiefs were given marching orders and they promised to stabilize the polity within 2 to 3 weeks, so that elections could hold in the whole country, and they achieved that. There was no Boko Haram attack during that period, and we had free and fair election up to today. Communities are still being sacked, and it should be addressed before the election, because when you sack a community, you disenfranchise members of such communities, as they will be forced into the ID camps where they will not be able to vote. The government should ensure that there is a level playing ground for anybody contesting for elections. So the security agents should stand up to their responsibility to ensure that we have a peaceful election and a peaceful Nigeria. Wow, this is a good one that has been analyzed here. All the security issues that are affecting the politics of today, all right? And the politics of today, the campaign of today being dominated by bitterness, intimidation, hate speeches is so terrible. And right now, everybody, all stakeholders have come out to say the same thing, that there's no place of violence in our political system, in our campaign, and all the state governors, all the thugs, everybody should eschew violence at all levels, and even the security agencies, the National Security Advisor Monguno and the IGP, everybody should have their hands on deck to ensure that they curb the spate of violence in campaign. And examples have been given: the killing of the Labour Party women leader in Kaduna, Mrs. Victoria Chintex, the disturbance of Atiku campaign rally in Borno, Maiduguri, all right, and the attack of a Labour Party representative in Lakwe in Lekki Ekpe Expressway of Lagos. All of that is not accepted, coupled with the burning and the destruction of Inec properties and assets in Ogun State and Osun State. Now we've had it in Enugu, and we've had it now also in Imo State. 4 places now, not acceptable at all. So now the spokesperson for Middle Belt Forum has enjoined the government, especially Buhari, to borrow leave on what Goodluck did in 2014 when he gave the service chiefs marching order to curb the violence, and with that, and that was achieved at least 3 weeks to the election, and everything was done perfectly and it was successful. So we really need these people to be sincere. I know that sometime last month, the IGP had a meeting with all security stakeholders and with INEC chiefs, all right, on how to curb this violence and attacks against INEC facilities. And they said they have sent all security agents to all INEC offices across the federation to stop the arson. Unfortunately, the arson continued. So the big question is, are these security chiefs actually paying lip service or they are committed to doing what they're supposed to do. So how can we confirm the genuineness of their commitment and promises to ensure law enforcement of law and order? Eh? So it's difficult. We don't trust them. That is true. They're all political mercenaries. They're all political mercenaries. So all these threats they're issuing, they are all water, and that's why the governors don't care. The governors are still doing what they like, using the power under their domain in their own various states, and nothing is happening because they seem to be more powerful than even the security chiefs. It's unfortunate that this is happening. Buhari is there. We don't understand. He's just talking, whether he's talking what somebody wrote for him or he really understands what's happening and he's taking action. We don't know. So it's quite unfortunate. We just hope that the election will be peaceful come 2023. So this is the analysis that has been given so far about the political atmosphere, the campaigning atmosphere across the federation, the campaign build up ahead of the 2023 election, and the major prevailing evil now, which is bitterness, intimidation, hate speech, violence, attacks of various kinds, and just name it. All evil vices are already present in this campaign and in this preparation for the elections. And it's because a lot of the candidates are desperate, especially the APC and the PDP candidates that are desperate. And most of the violence are even attributed to APC now, all right, across the federation. So the desperation is so high that they must get it by crook or by hook. That is why APC person Dogua came out yesterday to say that they will deal with Nigerians mercilessly if they fail to vote APC. How can somebody say that and he's still moving freely in the air and nobody has gone to question or arrest him for that? God will help us in this country. So that is the analysis that we have here, and let's have your comments below. Thank you for listening.